did we cover in our last lecture? Environment variables, yeah. So we have some variables that are shell variables that are related only to information in the shell, and some that are shared between many, many processes. They're shared so that when we set them, lots of places know about it at the same time, not just what's going on in the shell. Okay? So that was an important distinction. That's where that export command came in. To say, hey, everyone, this, you should know about this. Okay? So that's good. What about another topic that we covered? How if I said the word 77766? Permissions. Thank you. I'm not making theological pronouncements there. I'm sort of pointing out the fact that in Linux and in Unix more generally, we can invoke. We have the option of referring to file permissions via 3 so-called octal characters, right? So if I go and I look here, I'm going to take a particular file here, this one here. We have a way of describing this in terms of the permissions that can be used with that file. So who can parse out for me? So I have this file, v1.mw. Who can parse out for me what this line says? Starting from this far right side. It's a file name. When it was created, right, or modified, I think in this case, we have to look up. Okay, what's this thing? Size and bytes, yeah. Okay, this guy here, a group associated with the file. So modern authentication systems have a rich sort of what's called role-based security mechanism. So I, as a user, can be associated with several different roles I can take on. So I'm simultaneously a faculty member, and I'm an administrator, maybe on this machine, and maybe I'm also a user. Here we have a kind of simple mechanism. We can associate a group with a certain file, and we can use a certain command. What's the command? To group. Sometimes you wonder if you're learning a different language. To group. We can use that command to change a group associated with it. And what that allows is, it allows us to specify for a group of people, not just for everyone and not just for ourselves. We can actually delineate a third group, which is a set of people that we'd like to provide access to this file. Okay? There's a question about that, some of that lecture feedback for which I'm grateful. So we can actually say, for example, this is a faculty group, and so I can now distinguish for faculty what permissions do they have in seeing this file. And that might be different from the permissions that everyone else in the world has, or the permissions that I have. Okay? So there's faculty. Who's this guy? Yeah, that's another. Yeah.
If this user group and global,
Yes.
and there's 3 permissions for each, why is there 10 slots for 3
Okay, that's a good question. So, anyone want to give an explanation? Yeah, exactly. So it'll indicate D here if it's a directory. So that's an indication whether it's a file or a place that files and directories can be placed. Okay, that's your question. So here we have we're coming back here to this thing on the far left. What do we have? So we have these 9 slots. There's one for the directory. These here. What do these indicate? So they come in groups of 3, and what is this one saying? I mean, if you were to explain to someone in very brief terms, what is the permissions on this file, what would you say? Okay, yeah, and only the owner, who is the owner, can actually read and write it. Yep. But anyone can read it. Now, if I wanted to set that so that everyone had read-write access to it, what would I do? Okay, chmod. Oh. Okay, now we can actually do this in several different ways. So, okay. Okay, how if I only want to, okay, let's suppose I want to provide read-write execute access to everyone. So we didn't say, one is, these come in 3 groups, one for each group, it indicates whether there's read access, whether there's write access, and whether there's execute, which includes going into a directory, right? That's how you execute a directory. So if I want to change it so everyone has access to execute this as well, what would I do? 777, or I could do what? So I could do 777, yeah, okay, and then I could ls it again, and yeah, okay, great. Or I could do, so excuse me, I'm forgetting, remind me the syntax, anyone?
You're using ls.
Yes, okay, thank you. I thought that's right. Okay, so I could have gone and done that. I could have also, I could remove, how would I remove execute access? Yeah, so I could remove everyone's access, and there we go, okay? So we can do it with 777, which is a convenient number to remember, or we can do it with this one here. Okay, no, this one. So the question here is, why not just make everything 777? Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, it's a general principle in life. You don't want to open, there's dangers there. West Virginia, there are people out there you can't trust, okay? And particularly if you're on a system which is not just sitting in your bedroom, but is sitting out there for access over the web. Opening up read-write access for all people is just crying out for trouble. Crying out for trouble. For example, if one of you wanted to right now in this class, well, I generally trust my students by default, but if one of you wanted to do so, you might blow this file away even as I speak, right? So suppose I wanted to deny ability to write to this file. Now, there's actually a separate level of permissions associated with the folder this is in, but if I wanted to remove the general public's ability to write this file, what would I need to do? Sorry? Yeah, O minus W, good. Now we could have thought to specify that in octal, and that's all well and good. But here we've removed other. Doesn't O stand for owner? No, it stands for other. Other, okay. What is the owner called? It's called user, you, okay? Now we can always do that with octal and so on, and sometimes it's clear to do so, but many people prefer this sort of syntax, okay? So ladies and gentlemen, as a rule of thumb, please do not make so in lab 1, I asked for you to set the permissions of your file such and such a way. And a lot of you did, but you did so by expanding the permissions to a much larger set of things too. And I can't, the TAs were just raring to say let's give, cut their marks for that. And I said, well, I didn't tell them not to give permissions to everyone, so But please, as a general principle, just like you don't open your heart to everyone, trust everyone with all your savings for education, to go off and gamble or whatever, please don't trust everyone on the machine. All the more so in today's world. It's a nastier sort of set of vulnerabilities now than when I was your age. And I don't know how many machines I've been on. Maintained by myself, maintained by others, maintained by some absolutely top sysadmins which have gotten broken into. We had a Joomla site, nothing of value on it for people to do something with. I think it was broken into something like 8 times within a 6-month period by people fishing for information. And they didn't even do a good job poking around. Have some respect, but the fact is there are a lot of so-called script kiddies out there that run scripts, that break into systems, and they're just looking for vulnerabilities. And particularly if you leave your directories able to be executed by anyone, then they can look at what's in that directory through a web interface, see what's in the directory and see its permissions. And then they can go in and throb those files by name and see if they can write to them. Same thing with FTP sites. So ladies and gentlemen, do not, I'm going to have as a general rule from now on, if I don't ask you to give, if I ask you to set permissions, but do not explicitly say, do not give permissions more broad than this, please adhere to a minimalist interpretation. Don't give everyone permission to rewrite, execute your file. Okay? General principle, yeah. Okay, so that's a good question. So how would I check that? I could tell you, but exactly. So if I do, fubaz or something like that. Oh man. So what's going on here? How would I change that? Okay. So where would I put my settings for Bash? I'm in Bash. Where are the settings for Bash stored? Yeah, okay, that's true. You notice what's there, so yes. And I could either turn that off through what? Set plus O no clobber, eh? Yeah. And I could see all the settings of things here, and I could see no clobber is off. Or I could have done and overwritten it using, using this symbol, this vertical bar. Okay, foobar. Okay, I'm going to actually remove fubaz because it was there before, and I don't want its permissions corrupting it. Okay, anyone want to guess? Go take a look. Fubaz, and there you go. So what is that saying? I have rewrite. Makes sense. Created. Read what I created, right? I can't execute it by default. And who has the group, the associate group, and the group associated with this is that. So they have ability of public business. Okay. Yeah.
Who has permissions to change the permissions?
It's a good question. The owner. The owner has permissions to change the permissions by default here for this particular case. But if you have write access to the file in general, you're going to have ability to change this. So if I granted write access, someone else could change that. Assuming, of course, that they can get access to that folder, which is gated itself, and so on. So it's in this particular case. Okay? Okay, other question? Yeah.
If the user belongs to multiple groups, how to decide which group file belongs to?
So it belongs to a single group. So again, permission structures. So with more modern security systems, generally we have role-based security where a given user can belong to a single group. here, you can go through mechanisms like create groups that have different subsets of other groups of people in it. If you want to provide access to this by faculty and students, but not by staff, or by staff and faculty, but not by students, I could create a group which contains all those sets of people and assign them. So it's kind of it's not as elegant as modern security architectures in that regard. So classic Unix security dates back 40 years, and they just weren't fully used. Yeah.
The other group had all the permissions, but the user had none of them. Would that flow back down because they're technically everyone? Or can you limit the owner and not everybody else?
Okay, so in other words, if there were a group, the owner, and the question is if the owner is not part of the group.
If the owner has no permission, but the group has all permissions, does that flow back to them because they're part of the group?
Oh, I see. So in their capacity with the group, could they access this folder, in other words, rather than as the owner? Yes, if they were a member of the group, they would be able to access it as a member of the group, just not as the owner of the file. That sounds kind of odd, but it's in principle possible.
So, like, you could give a file permission of 007,
Yeah.
and it might as well just be everyone, like 777.
So there it would be publicly accessible to everyone with exactly the same permissions. There'd be no distinction among anyone. There'd be no privileges given to a certain set of people or to the owner itself. Yeah, so they could access it. So I could go access that file, for example, as a public user through a website, just like everyone else, and I could update it, etc. I'm going to have to move on to a different topic because this is all review. We're having a good review here, but I hope this is helpful. A couple other things. We covered streams, file systems, some permissions issues, and file types. There are a few things I didn't mention, and I probably should have. One thing is there's two commands that are really, really useful on the file system side. I think I may have let you glimpse them, but you didn't see them in more detail. So let me just